Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Ashley Mailloux, taking a look at a good edition of the Grade 2 Bessarabian Stakes, one of two graded stakes races at Woodbine on Saturday. Let's throw up the field for race number 9. We're going 7/8 of a mile for fillies and mares. $175,000 is the purse. This is a very, very competitive group on paper. The number 7 Loyalty figures to take some money. She's extremely consistent, and she was kind of part of a fast pace last time out and still was extremely game to the wire.
She was very game, and I think the pace, became her enemy in that race. But her last two, she hasn't been able to find the winner's circle, which I think is maybe a little bit of a knock on her here, especially at odds of 7-2. And this is a big field, and I think Dan, the key here is the 7/8 distance because some horses do have experience; they've run well over it, or they have limited experience or no experience at all. And I think some horses 7/8 is going to hit them in the right spot on the cutback. And then for those kind of stretching out in distance, it might be a tad too far.
That's an excellent point, especially considering the pace of this race, because Timeform US believes the pace will be fast. For some of these horses trying 7 furlongs for the first time or who are questionable at this distance, chasing a fast pace might not be the best way to go. Loyalty will be close, collecting flatter. The number 11 has speed. Artie's Princess, the 10, is also pretty quick on occasion. I wonder if Artie's Princess is going to be more aggressive this time around. Just couldn't get forward last time from a tough outside post.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see Juan Crawford send that one. But Dan, looking at this, I don't remember the last time I saw like 9 chicklets that close together here. I don't know how wickedly quick it will be, especially knowing it's 7/8 and not 3/4, but it should be fast.
Keep an eye on the 14, Love to Shop. The LP flag over her chiclet indicates that she has the fastest Timeform US late pace rating. We'll kick things off with a horse in very good form. That's the number 1, Spun Glass, who beat 5 of these rivals in the Grade 3 Ontario fashion. She's a perfect 2 for 2 in synthetic in her career. This race was a situation where she was able to save ground behind a hot pace, gets to the outside. The trip worked out, the ride worked out, but this horse has been very honest for most of her career. The distance is a question.
She's been honest, but it feels like just a year ago she was different as a 5-year-old, and now as a 6-year-old mare in these last couple of starts, she's come back to life. She's run very well. Yes, just one win from her last four, but two really nice second place finishes, both in the Mid Atlantic, and as you mentioned last time out, ends up getting a really nice win. Now they did go very quick; it was going 6 furlongs. I am curious though, just knowing that she's been, at least in her last couple, a little further back than she was earlier on in her career. If the pace is hot, is she going to have that late run again? To me, I think it's really possible.
Our Flash Drive, the number 2, is the defending champion in this race, and she's repeating the same pattern as last year, where she was the beaten favorite on the way in, and then she got a fast pace and she rolled by them in the Bessarabian. Last time out in the Ontario fashion, perhaps a wide trip worked against her. I was a little disappointed we didn't see more pop in the stretch.
Yeah, I was very disappointed as well, and I do think that's kind of been her season so far this year. She's been either hot or cold. She obviously started the season quite nicely with those two back-to-back wins, both up at Woodbine, one of which was on the synthetic. But once they took her show on the road, especially 2 and 3 starts back, she just wasn't as good as those fillies and mares. And I do think she could improve, making her second local outing in a row up at Woodbine. But never a good thing to see when they fail as a favorite like that. Mind you, she was chasing a very hot tempo.
Ready to Venture also comes out of the Ontario fashion. She finished 6th that day. She's getting back to 7 furlongs, and she popped a co-career best by her speed figure when winning over course and distance 2 starts back. Maybe getting out to 7 is the key. Perhaps she didn't like being in behind horses last time, although it worked out in the Seaway.
I'm hoping that getting back to 7/8 is the key because I'm wondering if going 3/4, they're just a little too quick for her early on. And she's at the disadvantage because she is chasing. But even looking at her race earlier this year, going 6 furlongs at Turfway, yes, it worked out. But prior to that, she also had a really nice run at 1:70. So she's a versatile type that I think maybe the 7 hits her right at the right distance, like it did 2 starts back.
The number 4, Baby No Worries, occasionally outruns her big odds in these big races. Third in the whimsical 5 starts back at a double-digit price. And coming into this race off a confidence-boosting allowance win over the synthetic surface at Presque Isle Downs. We know she has the right running style for this race, but she's another horse somewhat questionable at 7 and maybe from a class standpoint.
Yeah, the class standpoint is a little bit of a question, but it's funny when you go back to her races, say in March at Turfway Park and even back in May at Woodbine. Those are two really nice efforts at big prices, 15 and 11 to 1 in the Grade 3 Whimsical, where the pace was good enough for her going 3 quarters that she was able to close. She could not beat our flash drive and wasn't even close to her in that following effort. But as you said, I think maybe if you're looking from a price perspective, underneath would be at best where I see her, but I don't think you can rule her out in the exotics.
The number 5 is Dolce Soppressa, a horse that graduated over the synthetic, but she's really come to form in her last 2 races sprinting on the turf. Here's her most recent allowance victory, going 3/4 of a mile back on September the 30th. She did some good things in this race, Ashley. She's sitting in behind horses. She's spying a seam. And once she does get clear, she finishes the race off with alacrity.
Yeah, she does, and this is a really nice performance on the EP Taylor and just seeing the way that she's going to kick home. She's a little closer 2 starts back, but they went too fast in this race, and she just had to adjust and close from off of it, and I think, in terms of the 7 ace distance and what we think the pace will be, I do think that works to her advantage, but she is gonna get tested for class.
The 6 is Time for an Angel, and they really tested her last time out, not only from a class standpoint in the Wonderwear, but stretching her all the way out to 1.25 miles following 3 consecutive victories. She was eager in the early portion of that race, and she understandably got tired. She's going to appreciate dropping back in distance, and she's still lightly raced, that we could project some upside.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to make out of her. I mean, her numbers don't necessarily fit with this group, but those are races at Presque Isle. And looking at the Presque Isle races, she's been quite forward when she's run well. She was able to snap those 3 races in a row, which is really nice to see. But you look at the fractions, she's going to have to rate. I don't think she's necessarily quick as others here on paper. And is she able to pass them in the stretch? I'm not sure, but seems to be training well. And Michael Trombetta to ship up to Woodbine makes me think that he knows something about her that maybe we don't.
Loyalty is the number 7, and she ran so well in the Ontario Fashion, won third last time out, considering she was part of that hot pace all the way around the track. I mean, they went that second 1/4 mile in sub 22, and she's battling it out for the early lead. The problem is the pace might be once again aggressive. I think this time Kazushi knows her and is going to take her back and just sit in a stalking position. Maybe you try to get the jump on the true closers.
I think he's going to have to, not only just because of the pace, but because of the distance, going a little further to 7 ace. I don't think he can be as forward and as aggressive, and you certainly don't want what happened on October 14th to happen again. To me, though, I'm really curious, and obviously we won't know till race day how much respect she's going to take in here, because knowing, as I've said earlier, when we looked at the slate, that it is a big field, she's lost her last 2, where I think when you look at the race 2 back, I know it was on the road. I don't know how many excuses that she really had there, though. I would have expected a little bit more from her. My question would be is, if she's that short, do I think she's worth taking? Probably not. I probably would look elsewhere.
I think that's a fair point, considering this is such a competitive race on paper, and she might be part of a fast pace again. Owen's tour guide got the right setup against a weaker field last time out, going 3/4 of a mile. She just bounded right to the early lead, and she kept on rolling, just holding off the closers in the final 16th of a mile. She beat a couple of next out winners in this race, but this is just a stratosphere from a class standpoint on Saturday.
Yep, and that's what Sophia Vivas is so good at doing, right? Was able to open up a lead here and had enough left in reserve. And Dan, I remember not having this one because I was there that day, and this horse just made things look pretty easy on the front end. And I think the number came back flashy, and that's why they're going to give her another try against this level of competition. And I am curious, though, from a pace perspective, she can be very quick, so she could muddle things early for others in here.
Now, one of my pet handicapping angles is taking horses cutting back to this 7 furlong distance. And the 9 Mistracaris is not only turning back in distance, but arguably dropping a little bit in class after running in the Canadian against Moira. She actually beat Moira 2 starts back in the Dance Smartly when getting to the lead. Now, she's won sprinting in the past from off the pace, albeit on turf. The big question mark for her is synthetic, but she ticks a lot of other boxes.
She certainly does, and just looking at her, lightly raced campaign the last 2 years, she's been very impressive. She's 3 for 6. I thought her race in the Dance Smartly, I thought Javier Castellano gave her a beautiful ride and really gave her every chance at winning on the front end, and the Canadian, she just didn't fire in the same way. So I don't mind that she's been on the shelf since then. They've given her about 9 weeks to recuperate, or 8 weeks since then. And she's been training at Belmont. So just like her stablemate who's entered in the other stakes race. To me, I guess if you're shipping one, you can ship two. Whether that means they like both of them, I'm not sure. But I do think there's a lot of intrigue there. She certainly can handle the class. But as you said, it is the surface.
Artie's Princess is the number 10. She won this race way back in 2020. And I guess one of the big questions for Artie's Princess and her fans coming into this race is she the same mare at 6? Because she just hasn't shown the same vibrancy in her recent 3 starts up here at Woodbine that we've seen in the past. I hate to say it, but maybe she's getting a little long in the tooth. She does have speed.
Maybe. I'm curious to see her though one more shot, especially at the 7/8 distance without blinkers, because you can see she wore blinkers for a while. Last time out, they took them off, and maybe it was a little bit of a shock for her. And they also went really quick early on, so I think she got outrun from there, even though she does have speed. So I'm willing to give her one more shot. I think Juan Crawford does probably have to send her a little bit here from post 10 and wants to get her involved early, especially considering the fact that she was not involved at all last time out. But she's one that at her best, she can certainly hang at this level, but those races, you can see they're kind of far and few between.
The 11 Collecting Flatter is going to face older fillies and mares for the first time in her career as she returns off of a June layoff. She was part of a quick pace on turf last time out, and she faced a good horse. The winner of that race came back to win the Ontario, Colleen, with an 86 Beyer speed figure. She is a stakes winner going 7/8, but there are question marks. Older horses, layoff, pace.
I can't see it here. I mean, she is 0 for 4 in the money in 2023. And, looking at her races, I would say you can look at the one a little, 2 back in the Ruling Angel, where she was pretty forward on the, a synthetic at the 7/8 distance. And they went really quick to the opening half. And she ended up surrendering and finishing 4th. But that level and those top 3, they're not near this group. So to me, she's really going to need to improve.
Awesome Treat, the number 12, is 20-1 on the morning line. I mean, she was a big price last time out in the Ontario Fashion, and she rallied for second behind Spun Glass, earning a 92 Beyer speed figure. So we know she's in form. She was getting back to the synthetic, which is probably her best surface, and 7 furlongs is no issue. I would expect another good late run. This price seems like value to me.
Yeah, we're gonna be hoping you get somewhere near there, Dan, because I don't know if we're gonna see that again. And maybe it's a hindsight or, coulda, woulda, shoulda. But you're right. Last time out, I don't think she should have been those odds. Look at her races at Turfway Park, and we know what they've done with their sort of meat and their structure. The quality is way stronger than it was, say, 2, 3 years ago at Turfway. So she was in some deep waters, and she was hanging in there just about every single start. Second to opening buzz a couple of times, or just behind that one. So last time out really wasn't shocking at all. Seems like this one should be fine at the 7/8 distance as well. And you've mentioned that earlier, has a successor, a couple of them at the distance.
The 13 Midnight Stroll comes up from the States for a very underrated trainer in John Terranova. She's a graded stakes winner on dirt. Now, they tried synthetic at Presque Isle Downs with her last time out. I think she passed the test. There was no pace on in that race. She was wired and she was running at the end. She might get a 180-degree different pace scenario here, and that might be all it takes.
Yeah, that might be it all it takes. And also just second off the layoff. I thought she raced really well in the Presque Isle Masters. And prior to that, you can see, I mean, see how she's been kind of handled. Her name, we all know her name. She's been in some tough spots, especially last year as a 3-year-old and now as a 4-year-old. We haven't seen her in the winner's circle much, just that one win, 3 starts back, but it was at the 7/8 distance. And I just love that we've seen what she's been able to do at least one time now on the synthetic.
3 for 3 in the past, Lasix on. She'll get Lasix once again on Saturday. Love to Shop completes this field. In other words, cutting back in distance. I don't mind her going shorter. She was a maiden winner going 3/4 of a mile. She showed enough class to beat the boys on turf. 2 starts back in the Toronto Cup. I think she was compromised by a very slow pace last time out in the Ontario Damsel. If she could find position early, you could make a case that she could kick for at least a piece.
Absolutely. And I think looking at the winner of the race, 3-back Mohawk Trail is a pretty nice horse. This runner up most recently, Solo Album. There's a lot of crossover if you're looking at this race and looking at the other graded stakes, and that has to do with the distances, right? Some people are going to stretch out to a mile and a quarter, some are going to cut back to 7/8, and I think she's held her own. I mean, you cannot ignore the fact that she did get a 92 Beyer 2 starts back against male rivals. I know it was on the turf, but she has talent. She's been there every step of the way. The only thing I don't love for her is post 14.
Let's take a look at our top selections for a really nice edition of the Bessarabian. We're both going to go with Midnight Stroll. She's got class on the dirt. She showed a lot, almost overcoming a difficult pace scenario last time out at Presque Isle.
Yeah, I found it hard to kind of shop outside of her. I mean, I understand a lot of people will look at horses like Loyalty as their top pick, but I think Midnight Stroll, what she was able to show at Presque Isle was pretty impressive, and I just expect a more improved performance second time out.
13, 3, 1, and 7 for Ashley. 13, 1, 12, and 7 for me. It's the Bessarabian, one of 2 graded stakes races at Woodbine on Saturday. Best of luck.